My oldest friend listed me as Leila's financial guarantor without telling me. The school emailed me like it was all agreed. I called her and she goes, "You were gonna pay anyway." I nearly threw my phone. The day started with a call that should have made me smile. Instead, it left me staring at the wall for a long minute after I hung up. "Uncle Adrian." Leila's voice burst out of the speaker with the kind of giddy joy only a 19-year-old could carry. "I got in. Milan. The Istituto. They picked me." I blinked at the sunlight pouring in through my studio window, still holding the phone a little away from my ear like I hadn't quite processed the words. That's incredible, Leila, I said, pushing myself out of my worn leather chair. "I knew you could do it. Ever since you were, 11? Sewing up pillowcases like they were runway pieces." She laughed. "I still have that awful yellow one. Remember? With the crooked zipper." I grinned. "I remember telling you not to give up." Guess that worked out. For a moment, it was a good kind of silence. The kind where you could hear someone smiling on the other end. Then she said it, so casual, like she was commenting on the weather. "Oh, by the way, Aunt Camilla said you'd be covering the tuition, so I won't have to stress, thank God." My smile froze. "Sorry, what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Leila didn't catch it, or pretended not to. "She said you were going to help out, like the whole thing. Room and board too. I mean, she said you promised or something." I sat back down slowly. Well, we'll figure it out," I said, already hearing the weakness in my own voice. "Let me look into a few things." "You're the best," she chirped, oblivious. "Seriously, I'm so lucky to have you." We said our goodbyes. She hung up still giddy. I stayed on the line a few extra seconds, staring at the call screen like it might change if I waited long enough. It didn't. I lowered the phone and let my hand drop onto the cluttered desk, landing somewhere between a paint-stained ruler and a long-forgotten tax form. Again, I muttered, "Of course it's me." Again. It wasn't that I didn't love Leila. I did. I remembered her 3rd birthday, how she wore a tutu over her jeans and said she wanted to be a fashion fairy. I remember being the one to drive her to art camp when Camilla forgot, paying for piano lessons she never finished, helping with the portfolio she used for the Milan application. It wasn't just about money. It had never been. But Camilla, her mother, my oldest friend, my headache for life, always knew exactly how to make my help feel mandatory. And over the years, her gratitude had slowly warped into assumption. No matter how temporary it was supposed to be, it never ended. Just until she finds a job. Just until they get back on their feet. Just until Leila graduates. Now it was just until she flies across the ocean to study at one of the most expensive schools in Europe. I've been paying Camilla's rent on and off since 2012, helping with groceries, covering emergencies that somehow happen every other month. Never once did she say, "This is too much." She always said, "We're family." But this felt different, because this time, no one even asked. They just told me what I was going to do. And the worst part? A tiny voice in the back of my mind already knew I'd say yes. 3 nights after Leila's call, I sat across from Camilla in her cramped dining room, picking at overcooked chicken she insisted was a little dry because the oven's off again. It wasn't the chicken that made the air taste stale. It was the way she kept circling the conversation like a shark sniffing blood. "So," she said, spearing a limp green bean, "Leila's practically floating these days. It's like all that self-doubt vanished overnight." I nodded. "She should be proud." "She is. And she should be. Milan's no joke." I kept chewing. I knew what was coming, and Camilla had never been good at subtlety. "She's lucky," she went on, pretending to admire the wilting centerpiece. "Not every kid gets this chance. Not every kid has someone in their life who can make this happen." I set down my fork. "Cam," I said about that. I was thinking maybe Leila should look into scholarships. Or grants. Maybe she could work part-time. A lot of students do. Camilla's face didn't move, but her eyes narrowed, just a little. "She got in because she worked her ass off. That girl's been sewing and sketching since she could walk. You want her pulling espresso shots between pattern classes? Really?" "I just thinking." She cut me off with a soft scoff. "You've got no kids, Adrian. No one depending on you. No mortgage. No college loans. You have the money. I know you do." I looked at her, my oldest friend, the woman I'd spent half my adult life helping, and realized I wasn't having a conversation. I was being told. "You're the only one who can help," she said, more pointedly now. "And honestly, you owe it to her." That last line hit harder than I expected. I owe it to her? I glanced around the room. The frame photos I paid to have printed, the chairs I'd helped replace after hers broke, the radiator I'd fixed last winter when the landlord didn't respond. It had always been, just until things settled down. But the truth was things never did, because as long as I kept swooping in, there was no reason for her to ever find her own footing. Still, I nodded. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll cover it." She exhaled like she'd just been given CPR. "I knew you'd come through." That was the thing. She always did. By the time I got home, the weight of it had already started sinking in. My savings, meant for the studio I'd been dreaming of renting downtown, would be gone. The business investment I'd been eyeing for months, not happening. But the part that got me wasn't the money. It was how Camilla thanked me. Not with tears, not with appreciation, not with warmth, just a satisfied little smile like a favor she was due. In the car ride home, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Second father, I muttered, and the words didn't feel like praise anymore. They felt like a sentence. The first time I delayed a payment, it was by 4 days. 4. Camilla called me twice a day that week. I didn't answer right away. I told myself I was busy, but the truth was I needed space, just some room to think. I wanted to see if she'd check in without an agenda. She didn't. On the 5th day, I finally picked up. Adrian, she snapped before I even said hello. Layla's tuition is late. They sent an email to me. You said you'd handle it. I've been tied up with work, I said evenly. And I never agreed to a schedule. She sighed loud and long like a martyr halfway through a speech. I just don't understand you. This isn't about you, Adrian. This is about Layla's future. She's counting on you. I've been helping for over 10 years, Camilla. And we've always been grateful. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't loud or bitter. Just tired. No, Cam, I said, you've been comfortable. Not grateful. Not for a long time. She went quiet for a second. Then came the venom. So that's it? You're going to leave her stranded in another country because you're suddenly feeling petty. I rubbed my temple, standing in the middle of my kitchen, surrounded by unopened mail and cold takeout. I'm not her father, I said. Well, you've sure spent enough money pretending to be. That one landed like a punch. I leaned against the counter, gripping the edge until my knuckles turned white. You've got some nerve, I said, voice low. You've used me like a personal ATM for years. Rent, food, cars, school, everything. And every time you said it was just until things got better. But they never do they? Camilla didn't hesitate. You're the one with the big job, the flexible life, no one to answer to. You made yourself the safety net. Now you're mad we kept falling. I laughed again, but this time it was sharper. I'm not a bank account, Camilla. She made a sound, a little scoff, like I was being ridiculous. No, she said coldly. You're a selfish, bitter man who's abandoned his family. That's what you are. Something inside me cracked. I'm done, I said. No more payments. No more guilt. No more of this. She didn't beg. She didn't even pause. You'll regret this, she said. Then she hung up. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I expected another call, but because I finally felt something I hadn't in years. Clarity. She wasn't just leaning on me. She was standing on me. And I'd let her willingly, stupidly, because I thought love meant never saying no. But love isn't a trap. It's not a bill with no end. I turned off my phone, dropped it on the counter, and walked out to the balcony. For the first time in a decade, the silence felt like mine. When Camilla's mother, Margaret, called and invited me to Sunday dinner, she made it sound so innocent. Just a little get-together, she said, voice syrupy as ever. Feels like it's been ages. I'd love to catch up. I should have known better. Margaret only ever called me when she wanted something or when she was smoothing over the latest disaster Camilla had created. Still, part of me thought, maybe, just maybe this would be different. That maybe someone in that family wanted to talk to me, not my wallet. I wore a button-down shirt, brought a bottle of wine. I even picked up a chocolate tart from that overpriced bakery Margaret liked. Stupid, I know. When I walked into her house, the trap sprung immediately. Camilla was there. So was Leila. They were already sitting at the table, stiff and smiling too wide, like actors in a bad stage play. Margaret greeted me at the door with a kiss on the cheek and ushered me inside, talking too fast. Oh good, you're here. Let's eat right away, everything's hot. The food was untouched. I sat down slowly. So this is what we're doing, I said, scanning the table. Margaret had the nerve to act surprised. What do you mean? Camilla jumped in before I could answer. We just wanted to talk like adults. Cleared the air. Right, I said, setting the wine down without bothering to open it, because ambushing someone in a dining room screams maturity. Margaret sat between us, face tense. There's no need to be sarcastic. Camilla turned to me, her voice suddenly brittle. Layla's scared, Adrian. She's in a foreign country, trying to make a future for herself, and you pulled the rug out from under her. I didn't pull anything, I said. I just stopped funding it. Layla's eyes were on the table. She looked exhausted. Older. Adrian, she said softly, I applied for some loans. It's not ideal, but I can make it work. Camilla's head snapped toward her daughter. You what? I applied, Leila repeated, her voice firmer now. I've got a work-study interview too. I can figure this out. Camilla's face twisted. You don't need to figure it out. He said he would take care of it. No, I said. I said we'd figure it out. Not that I'd be a bottomless pit. Camilla rounded on me. After everything I've done for you. Done for me? I raised an eyebrow. Cam, I've been carrying you for years. Margaret's voice cut through the air like a knife. That's enough. This is family. No, Leila said, standing up suddenly. This is manipulation. That's what this is. The room froze. She looked at her mother, eyes full of something raw and shaking, not anger, not quite. Maybe sadness. Maybe clarity. You didn't tell me you expected him to pay everything. You made it sound like he offered. You said he loved doing it. I did it because I cared, I said gently, looking at her. But care doesn't mean endless sacrifice. Camilla's voice rose. So what? You want a medal? You want everyone to clap because you wrote some checks? No, I said, standing now too. I want to stop being treated like I owe you something just for existing. Leila grabbed her coat from the back of the chair. I'm done, she whispered. I can't keep doing this. I need to figure out who I am without all of this mess. She brushed past me, past Camilla, past Margaret, and out the door. Camilla didn't call after her. She just stood there, breathing heavy, like the whole performance had fallen apart. I looked at her one last time. You staged this dinner thinking I'd cave, I said. But you lost more than a check tonight. Then I followed Leila's lead, and I left. The email came on a Wednesday morning, tucked between a client invoice and a newsletter I never subscribed to. The subject line read, Financial Responsibility Confirmation, Istituto Moda di Milano. I clicked it absent-mindedly, thinking it was just a routine update, but as I read the first few lines, my heart started to race. Dear Mr. Adrian Keller, we are reaching out to confirm your commitment as financial guarantor for student Leila Vega for the academic year. Per the information submitted by her parent, Camilla Vega, you have agreed to assume full financial liability. I didn't read the rest. I sat back in my chair, the words bouncing around my skull like a bad echo. Guarantor, full liability, per the information submitted. I never signed anything, never filled out a form, never even saw one. I called the school immediately. The woman on the other end was polite, with a syrupy Italian accent that would have been charming if I wasn't on the verge of losing my mind. Mr. Keller, we were under the impression this was prearranged with the family, she said after I explained. Your name, address, and contact information were provided as the financial guarantor by Ms. Camilla Vega. I didn't sign a thing, I said. Not legally, not verbally. You'll find nothing with my signature on it. There was a pause. I understand, she said, her voice softening a bit. In that case, we will remove your information from our system and contact Ms. Vega directly to resolve the discrepancy. I exhaled slowly, gripping the phone like it might slip from my hand. Thank you, I said. Please keep me updated if she submits anything else in my name. Of course. After I hung up, I didn't move for a long time. Just stared out the window of my studio, the light bouncing off half-finished sketches on the table. She did it without even asking. Camilla hadn't just pushed a boundary. She had leapt over it, forged my name in spirit if not in ink, and handed my future over to a stranger in a finance office thousands of miles away. I grabbed the legal pad and started jotting down notes. Every transaction, every promise, every lie. I pulled up old emails, printed screenshots. It was time to document everything. Not just for me, but because I knew the next conversation with Camilla wouldn't be calm. She'd crossed a line. This wasn't just guilt or pressure anymore. This was betrayal. And I was done pretending we were still playing the same game. Camilla answered the door like she'd been waiting for me. Oh, she said, tilting her head. Didn't expect you to show up in person. I stepped into her apartment without waiting for an invitation. I had been in that living room 100 times, but this was the first time it felt like enemy territory. We need to talk, I said, keeping my voice steady. She walked toward the kitchen, barefoot, too casual for what was coming. If this is about the school, I told them it was just a formality. You were going to pay anyway. I stared at her. You told them I agreed, that I committed legally. She shrugged. So I assumed. What difference does it make? You said you'd help. I said I'd look into it, I snapped. Not sign up to be your ghost co-signer. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her smirk slowly cracking. Jesus, Adrian, you're acting like I stole your car. You forged a financial guarantee. It's not forgery, she said. They didn't need a signature yet. They just needed a name. You were going to pay. You don't get to decide that. Silence stretched between us. Her mouth opened, but this time no words came. I called the school, I continued. Told them you lied. Told them I won't be responsible for a cent. I've got everything in writing now, your email to them. The record of what you submitted. If you try to use my name again, I'll press charges. Camilla's face twisted into something cold. You're not serious. I've never been more serious. She pushed off the counter, her voice rising. You really think you're some kind of hero now? After all these years of playing savior, you suddenly grow a spine and now I'm the villain. I was never a hero, I said. I was just too afraid to say no. You knew that. You counted on it. She laughed, bitter and sharp. And you think walking away now makes you better than me? No, I said, stepping closer. It makes me free. She flinched just a little, but the fury came roaring back. You're heartless, she spat. Leila's out there alone, struggling, and you're what? Having a moral awakening in your 50s? I didn't blink. Leila's figuring it out. Something you never taught her to do. Camilla's eyes narrowed. You're going to regret this. You think people won't hear about how you left her in the dust. I nodded slowly. Let them hear. I've got my own version. And this time, I'm not keeping quiet. She was breathing hard now, shoulders shaking slightly. I turned for the door. That's it, she shouted. You just walk away? I looked over my shoulder. You stopped being family a long time ago. I just finally caught up. Then I left, and this time I didn't look back. It started with a text from an old college friend I hadn't heard from in years. Hey man, weird question. Did you really abandon your goddaughter in Italy after promising to pay for everything? I stared at my phone for a long minute before typing. Where'd you hear that? He sent a screenshot. Camilla's Facebook post. It was long, rambling, half heartbreak, half accusation, full of lies. Leila was left stranded by someone who promised to support her dreams. Some people can't handle real responsibility, even when they act like family. She tagged mutual friends. She shared it publicly. She even added a photo of Leila standing in front of the school sign, captioned with some poetic garbage about bravery in the face of betrayal. That night, the messages poured in. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly experts on my personal life. Some were polite. Some not. Wow, Adrian. Never took you for the type. She's just a kid. How could you do that to her? Family is family, man. Doesn't matter how tough things get. I read every one of them. Then I put my phone down and didn't touch it again until morning. By noon the next day, Camilla's story had spread to our little corner of social media like wildfire. Even a couple of distant relatives chimed in, parroting her version like gospel. Poor Leila. How could Adrian do that? Some people are just cold. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself in the comments. Instead, I wrote a single email. Subject, for the record. I sent it to everyone she'd looped in, the friends, the cousins, the acquaintances from Leila's high school graduation party. Everyone who had commented, forwarded, speculated. No drama, no emotion, just facts. I listed every expense. Rent, food, lessons, travel, portfolio prep. I itemized every payment I'd made for Leila since she was 12. I included the tuition agreement she had submitted my name on without consent. I included the school's response confirming they'd remove me once I reported the misrepresentation. I ended the email with one line. Supporting someone you love shouldn't become an expectation, and drawing a boundary isn't betrayal. Then I signed my name and hit send. I turned my phone off. That night, I sat in my studio, the lights dimmed low, the windows open. A breeze came through, carrying the faint sound of traffic in spring. It was quiet. No buzz, no dings, no guilt disguised as family concern. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. I'd said what needed saying. Let them believe what they wanted. I was done being on trial for finally choosing myself. The first apology came 2 days later. It was a short message from my cousin Nina. I'm sorry, Adrian. I didn't know the full story. Camilla made it sound like something else. Hope you're okay. I didn't reply, but I stared at the message for a while. The next day, another came in. This time from an old family friend, Maggie. Just wanted to say I read your email. I had no idea you'd done all that for Leila. You were incredibly generous. Sorry for assuming. Then came an email from Leila's high school art teacher, someone I hadn't seen in years. She simply said, thank you for helping her get as far as she did. I hope she's told you that herself. They trickled in like that, quiet, scattered acknowledgments. No grand confessions. No dramatic reversals. Just a slow unraveling of the story Camilla had spun. I didn't respond to most of them. Not because I was bitter, but because I didn't need to. For once, I didn't feel like defending myself. The truth had already done its job. Even the silence started to feel different. Not empty, not angry, just quiet, respectful. No more texts trying to shame me. No more calls demanding help. No more lectures about what family should do. People stopped asking me to justify my choices. They started respecting my boundary, even if they didn't say so out loud. One evening as I sat on the couch, legs crossed and a sketchpad in my lap, I realized I hadn't thought about Camilla all day. Not once. It used to be automatic, checking my phone, bracing for the next demand, running through mental lists of what she needed, what I could afford, how to phrase a no gently enough that it wouldn't cause a meltdown. Now, I wasn't waiting for anything. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding space for someone who only showed up to take more. I had cut the rope, and I wasn't pulling it back. I was working late in the studio when I heard the knock. It was slow, deliberate, not urgent, not shy, just expectant. I didn't even have to look through the glass to know who it was. I opened the door, and there she stood, Camilla, dressed like she'd come from a dinner she didn't enjoy. Makeup slightly smudged, that same sharp look in her eyes, except now it carried something new. Desperation barely disguised as confidence. You humiliated me, she said before I could speak. I leaned against the doorframe. Hi, Camilla. She stepped inside without being invited, as if this was still her territory. She looked around the studio, scoffing. This is what you chose? Your little projects over family. I didn't answer. I just waited. She turned to me, arms crossed, her voice rising. People are talking. You sent that email like it was some noble declaration. You think that fixes everything? No, I said calmly. It wasn't meant to fix anything. It was meant to end it. Her eyes narrowed. You're really just going to pretend we don't exist now? After all these years? I stepped past her and opened the door again. Held it there. You don't exist to me anymore, I said simply. Her mouth opened then shut. She didn't move. I mean it, Camilla. No more calls. No more messages. No more stories. I'm done. With all of it. She gave a bitter laugh, masking whatever hurt might have flickered in her eyes. You're such a coward, she spat. You'd rather hide in here than face the damage you've done. I looked her in the eye. No, I finally faced it. That's why I'm walking away. She stared at me for a long beat, something cracking just beneath the surface, but she turned and walked out, no parting shot this time. I closed the door gently behind her, locked it, stood there for a moment, hand on the knob, listening to nothing. Not silence loaded with tension, just silence, final, and for the first time I knew it would stay that way. It had been a few weeks since I last heard Camilla's voice, seen her number flash on my screen, or even caught a second-hand complaint from someone in our mutual orbit. It was like a switch had been flipped, and the static that had filled my life for so long was finally gone. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Hi, is this Adrian?" Her voice was tentative, softer than I remembered. "It's me," I said. "Leila." "Yeah." She let out a nervous laugh. "Sorry, I wasn't sure you'd pick up." I sat down at my drafting table, pencil still in my hand, heart steady. "How's Milan?" I asked. She sighed. "Hard." "Good. I'm doing okay." There was a pause. "I moved out," she said quietly. "Out of Mom's place. I'm in a shared flat now. It's small, but it's mine. I'm working part-time at a fabric shop downtown. The pay sucks, but they let me keep scrap material, so I've been designing on the side." Pride bloomed in my chest, quiet, solid. Not because she was succeeding, but because she was trying. Really trying. "That's amazing," I said. "Truly." She hesitated. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how things went, for everything Mom said and did. I didn't know she listed you as a guarantor. I didn't know how far she'd taken it." "I believe you," I said simply. "And I don't expect anything," she rushed to add. "I'm not calling to ask for money. I wanted to thank you. Not for what you paid for pulling back, for showing me what it looks like to stand up for yourself. I needed that more than I realized." I smiled. "Took me a long time to learn that lesson." "I'm still learning it," she said, "but I'm getting better." We talked a bit longer about her classes, the city, a design competition she was thinking of entering. When we said goodbye, she didn't ask for anything, and I didn't offer out of guilt. But just before we hung up, I said, "If you ever need help, the kind that's asked for, not expected, you can always call me." "I know," she said, "and if I ever do, I promise it'll be with both eyes open." That night, I pulled out the notebook I'd shelved months ago, the one with sketches for my studio redesign. I flipped through the pages slowly, letting my fingers trace lines I had drawn back when I thought this chapter of my life was still on hold. It wasn't anymore. I'd started building again, not just with wood and paint and funding, but with peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't ask you to apologize for not bleeding yourself dry. I booked a weekend trip upstate. I opened a new savings account. I applied for that grant I kept putting off. The life I'd pressed pause on was no longer waiting. It was moving forward on my terms.